Guys, what's up? Let's talk about Inoue versus Nakatani today. I am very excited for this fight. I think this fight is not hyped enough. I think not enough people are excited for this fight. I think this has, I said that Sugar Nunez versus Emmanuel Navarrete had fight of the year potential, and I was a little disappointed in that fight, but it ended up being a one-sided ass whooping. And, I'm a big Inoue fan, and that's part of why I'm excited for this fight, if you get what I mean. If you can pick up on my pick for this fight from that, I think this fight is going to end up being similar to a fight like Navarrete versus Nunez, or even more similar to a fight we saw earlier this year in Devin Haney versus Brian Norman. Because, and I mean, Inoue is a much better offensive fighter, at least, pound for pound, shall we say, than Devin Haney. He has a more exciting offensive skill set, so it feels weird to compare Inoue to Devin Haney. But, I mean, Shakur versus Teofimo also falls into this camp in this kind of fight. The kind of fight where one fighter's technique just completely nullifies the other fighter, where the level of one fighter's technique overwhelms the other fighter. And that's what I feel like we're going to see in Inoue versus Nakatani. And so, honestly, I see this as a very predictable fight as fights between two 32-0 fighters go. But it's not like Nakatani doesn't have, the ability to challenge Inoue. He has one of the best offensive skill sets that Inoue will have ever seen in there. He's one of the best offensive fighters Inoue has ever fought. He might be the best fighter altogether that Inoue has ever fought. And the reason that I say might, and people are going, no, there is no way. I thought Nakatani was supposed to be number one. Well, Ramon Cardenas dropped him. Ramon Cardenas has crazy power, especially at 122. That's a fight I'd actually like to see run back. And I think that Nakatani is actually, maybe a higher level fighter. Well, he is a higher level offensive fighter. He definitely has a more varied, a more interesting, a more explosive, and altogether a more dangerous offensive skill set than Cardenas, but that doesn't mean that his single shot power is as significant as Cardenas at 122 pounds, and that it will land on a fighter like Inoue in the way that it would need to drop him. I have much more significant questions about that. And I mean, additionally, I have questions about Nakatani, heading into this fight because of his last fight. I don't think that he won his last fight. I think that he lost to Sebastian Hernandez. I scored that fight a one-round victory by Sebastian Hernandez. I thought that the 118 to 110 scorecard for Nakatani was ridiculous, and that part of the reason why those scorecards were rendered was so that this fight at the Tokyo Dome could be made, because that Night of the Samurai card was obviously one of those, setup cards where two future fighters who are supposed to fight each other fight on the same card, and they're both supposed to win. And, Nakatani, I could definitely see anybody thinking that he did enough to win that fight. I think that he unquestionably landed the harder shots in that fight, and that there's a chance that he could land the harder shots in this Inoue fight, to be honest with you. He is a great counterpuncher. He's an extremely creative counterpuncher. But Inoue nullifies counterpunchers like almost nobody in the sport with his foot movement and with his unbelievable technical striking, his ability to both punch on the front foot and counterpunch at an elite level. That's really the problem with fighting Inoue. Inoue reminds me, actually, when I try to compare him to other fighters, like in terms of being a matchup nightmare, what makes him undefeated, what makes him so special, what earns him that monster label. He actually reminds me more of like a cardio beast, kind of very tough, durable middleweight who also has an offensive skill set. And why I say middleweight is I'm talking about guys like Marvin Hagler, like Triple G. That's the kind of fighter that I feel like Inoue is actually cut from that kind of cloth, where he's that kind of hard to knock down and that kind of durable, has that kind of stamina and that level of offensive skill set, right? He is a really scary monster of a fighter. And Nakatani, that's why I'm sort of thinking when I see this fight, I'm like, Nakatani, this is kind of Nakatani's final boss in a way. Right, Inoue is the final boss for Nakatani. Nakatani's 32-0. He's worked his way from the Japanese scene to the Asian scene to the world scene. And now, who's the world champion at your weight class? Well, he just happens to be the greatest Japanese fighter of all time, Naoya the Monster Inoue. This is the final chapter. This is the climax of Nakatani's story, of Nakatani's boxing story. Now, it could just be the first chapter of a multi-chapter story. They could have multiple rematches, I think, these two, especially depending on how good the first fight is. And one thing that I really like about this fight is I think that these two are going to stand in front of each other. Inoue could win this fight moving. Inoue could win this fight boxing. These guys are both very talented boxers. They're both very capable on the back foot. They're both really complete fighters, to be honest with you. It's one of the best fights that's been made in a very long time. And it's very, very special that both these fighters are from Japan, to be honest with you. They really could be the #1 and #2 greatest Japanese boxers of all time, although, I'm not that level of Japanese boxing historian to say, but this is an extremely significant moment in Japanese boxing history. Anyway, like I said, these guys can both win the fight on the back foot. They can both fight on the front foot, but I honestly really do think that they're going to spend a lot of time in this fight on the front foot. If I were to bank on one person getting out to a strong start, I think it's Inoue. I think that the Tokyo Dome environment, the high-pressure environment, that suits Inoue better, and that's really the problem. That's the first thing of the three big things that's the first thing of the three big advantages that I think Inoue has in this fight, that I think are pretty much make it impossible for me to pick Nakatani. And the first one is championship level experience, and that championship level experience helps even more when you're fighting in a crazy environment like the Tokyo Dome. I know that even Inoue, he's never fought in an environment like the Tokyo Dome. Well, he's fought in massive arenas and stadiums the world over. I don't know if he's ever fought in a stadium, actually, but large arenas the world over in front of sellout crowds, high intensity all the time. And then it's not that Nakatani isn't playing in large venues and arenas, but it's different. Inoue has a higher experience at the championship level, and also in the ring, of course, that plays a very important role. That Inoue does have, more championship experience. Although Nakatani has a crap ton of championship experience, especially at the Asian and especially the regional level. He has plenty of championship experience in his professional career too. But I think that Inoue's fighting style also gels better with the kind of calm and tactful sort of approach that I'm talking about. His ability to view things from, a further out, from a tactful perspective, and sort of stay within himself within a fight. Now, that is the tertiary factor to me. The two main factors are what I talked about, comparing Inoue to Hagler, comparing Inoue to a great, durable, middleweight kind of fighter where he really does have a durability and an offensive skill set and a toughness of a larger man, like genuinely. He has great stamina and unbelievable toughness, and it's so hard to fight somebody who has better stamina than you and better technique than you and better toughness than you. I guess that's three things. I was thinking it was two things, but it's stamina and technique and toughness. That's what Hagler had on everybody. That's what Triple G had on everybody. If you have those three things and then you also have the championship experience, this is a tough route for Nakatani, I think. I think that Nakatani, you're going into like puncher's chance territory, and he's Nakatani. He's very unpredictable, very powerful, and very strong, and also very technically excellent, just like Inoue, although not at the same level. But you're entering one shot puncher's chance territory with Nakatani. And from there, the problem becomes that I question his power at 122 pounds, like I've talked about previously in my Inoue and Nakatani videos, where I just don't know if Nakatani quite has that power translating to 122 pounds like we saw in the Sebastian Hernandez fight. So I'm not sure if he's going to actually be able to find that one shot on Inoue. And also, if this fight comes to the late rounds, I mean, think about it. I said that I think Inoue has a chance, the better chance in this environment to dominate the early rounds. Well, I also think that because of his gas tank, Inoue is going to dominate the late rounds as well. So that doesn't really bode well for Nakatani either. And I think that because Inoue is likely to have the better gas tank at the end of the fight, Inoue is also, honestly, the more likely fighter to commit to the body. Nakatani can throw bombs to the body, but I don't know about dedicatedly committing to the body round on round the way that we've seen Inoue do before, where he really dedicatedly breaks you down to the body, where Nakatani always has to be looking for that big bomb over the top and that big shot. Inoue is more comfortably working forward with that pressure and working you to the body. I think that it's very, very likely that Nakatani is the more tired fighter in the late rounds, and that makes it a lot less likely that he lands that big bomb. So then you're at a point where it's like, okay, so Nakatani's best chance is an early round knockout, and then you're really getting to a point where it's like, okay, right, sure. I mean, like, Cardenas, he knocked down Inoue early, and Inoue got right back up. And again, like I said in my previous video, Inoue, that exact shot from Cardenas completely flatlined another fighter and sent him unconscious, and Inoue got up from it in 6 seconds, right? So Inoue is just tough. And I think he's tough enough to take an early fight shot from Nakatani. I think he'd have to be damaged previously and then be knocked out by Nakatani from a second large blow. And there's no precedent of that happening to Inoue. That would be unbelievable. So the problem is really with this fight to me, not to put a damper on things, because I still think it's going to be a momentous occasion, but I just think that Nakatani doesn't really have the technique to make this the close fight that it could be, and to, you know, start an immediate rivalry of maybe, you know, an immediate rematch, an immediate trilogy where we just have to know who's the best. You could get that, but I don't think that Nakatani has quite the technique. And make no mistake, I'm not talking about his offensive skill set. I'm talking about his footwork. I'm talking about his ring IQ. I'm talking about, you know, the little things. I'm talking about the little things. And Inoue does the little things better than anybody in this weight class, better than almost anybody in the world. That's why I'm comparing him to, you know, some of the most excellent fighters of all time. And I just don't think Nakatani is quite at that level. And I think you could even see a similar situation, although I trust Nakatani will have better ring advice, better corner advice than what Teofimo had in that disastrous fight. I think you could be looking at a pretty wide decision win ultimately for Inoue. So that's what I'm going to pick in this fight. I think Inoue probably wins this fight 10 rounds to 2, 9 rounds to 3, and honestly, quite possibly 11-1 or 12-0. I wouldn't be shocked to see Inoue win this fight by shutout. But let me know if I'm underestimating Nakatani. I've watched plenty of Nakatani fights. I'm very familiar with his game. I'm very familiar with his skill set. I just think that it's going to be a great battle of counterpunchers at points too, but I think there's going to be some amazing exchanges. Inoue is going to be able to work off Nakatani like no other opponent he's ever been able to work off before, right? I think that Inoue is going to work off Nakatani's punches with that technical brilliance in a way that's like really gonna shine. Inoue is going to have a great night in this fight. Inoue, he just goes out there and gets the job done every single time. So if there's something about Nakatani that you guys see, a specific hitch in Inoue's game, a specific punch from Nakatani that you guys can maybe see landing, that you guys could see making a big difference in this fight, let me know. But for now, like, subscribe. I'll be back with all the fight content in the future, and I will definitely be making another video about this before the fight, and I will be making a review video of this fight. My streaming setup is still messed up, so I will be back. I don't know when the streams will be back, but hopefully I can be back soon with Boxing Manager. I'm got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now, so I've been putting off the Boxing Manager series because that's kind of a time commitment, but that's definitely going to be back on the channel because I know everybody wants to see that. So yeah, like and subscribe for more fight content. Peace, guys. I will be back very soon.